Welcome to the Doing Business in France presentation presented by Team 3. In this video, we will highlight key differences in political, economic, sociocultural, technological, environmental, and legal aspects of doing business in France relative to the United States.
The country of France. France, or the French Republic, is located in Western Europe. At 643,801 square kilometers, France is the size of Texas. It spans from the English Channel to the Mediterranean coastline and has a population of 66.7 million people. Although the French people have been around for millennia, the founding of the French Republic took place on 22 September 1792. The French Republic exercises executive power. Its executive branch is composed of the President, François Hollande, who oversees both the upper and lower assembly house. Always thinking of the French motto, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, French officials govern in respect to strong constitutional law. The French legal system is based entirely on written civil law. The system of administrative law was laid down by Napoleon and is appropriately called the Code Napoléon. The Code Napoléon, or Napoleonic Code, governs all branches of French law and includes the Code Civil, the Code Fiscal, and the Code Penal. The Napoleonic Code also covers property rights. Like in much of Western Europe, after World War II, property rights were not seen as a priority to the developing and fledgling French nation. However, since joining the EU, French property rights have become a priority due to pressure from other member nations of the EU and the United States. So now that we've talked about how safe your investment is, let's talk about how fertile of an investment opportunity we have in the country of France. As you can tell by the graph, the GNI per capita in France closely resembles that of the GNI per capita in the United States. What this graph does not show is that it also mirrors several other countries in the EU zone. Due to the close economic relationship that France has with other member nations in the EU, one can say that the growth of the GNI in France closely resembles that of Germany, Luxembourg, Netherlands, and until recently the United Kingdom. Though there are many positive aspects about having such closely intertwined economies, one of the problems with having such closely intertwined economic growth rates is that the GNI growth rate shrinks when the rest of the developing world goes through a financial crisis, as you can see from the chart above. Because of the size of the French economy and its role in the EU, any drop in the GNI growth rate is seen as a serious blow to the political and economic stability, not of just France, but of the entire European region. To counter this drop in the GNI growth rate, France, along with many other developing countries, dropped their inflation rate to either 0 or less than 0 in order to stimulate borrowing and lending by local banking institutions. Inflation rates have been staying low. This could be a great time to invest with little concern of inflation in the future. The REER is used to measure the value of a specific currency in relation to an average group of major currencies. As the French utilize the euro, the same currency as the rest of the Eurozone, the RER can effectively be measured as the same in every other country that uses the euro as currency. Although the government actively promotes transparency, accountability, and civic participation, France continues to face corruption challenges in such sectors as public works and the defense industry. An independent judiciary and the rule of law are firmly established in France, property rights and contract enforcement are secure but real estate regulation is complex and inefficient. Where France does seem to have a problem is on the Heritage Foundation's Index of Economic Freedom, where France has an overall score of 62, a world rank of 75, a regional rank of 32 out of 44. To quote the Heritage Foundation economic summary, the French economy is highly diversified in institutional strengths like strong protection of property rights and a comparatively efficient regulatory framework facilitate entrepreneurial activity. Various reforms have been attempted to boost the economy's lagging competitiveness and flexibility, but progress has been uneven. Responsible for more than half of GDP, the government still dominates major sectors of the economy as a large shareholder in many semi-public institutions. Various stimulus measures have resulted in a deterioration of public finance. Despite recent reform efforts, the labor market remains rigid, undetermining long-term productivity and employment growth. With around 5.5% of its GDP spent on education, it is well known that the French education system is regarded as one of the best in the world. Education is compulsory in France from ages 6 to 16, but a large majority of children start school well before the minimum age. Some start as early as 2 years old. And nearly 50% of all French children aged 18 to 21 are still in full-time education, or else following a vocational training course. Going hand in hand with the French investment in education comes France's high standing on the Human Development Index. With its low rate of crime, low rate of inequality, and low rate of unemployment, France is truly a developed country, mirroring much of the developed world. France is an overwhelmingly Catholic country, at one point even supporting a second pope. However, because of colonial holdings and immigration, France now supports a large population of Muslim, Jewish, and Buddhist citizens. Population demographics in France show that the average age of a French citizen is between 35 and 70 years of age. With 2.01 children per woman, France has one of the highest fertility rates in Europe, ranking just behind Ireland. France therefore stands out from the rest of the EU, where the average fertility rate is approximately 1.6 children per woman. Utilizing Hofstede's research, we can tell that France is medium in indulgence, but high in uncertainty avoidance, medium in masculinity, above average in individualism, and above average in power distance. Looking now at other cultural indicators, we can see that France is a very internalized country with a strong belief that everyone should be treated the same. France views itself as an innovative culture, and thus up to 2.2% of its GDP is spent on research and development. The French are a very eco-conscious country, and thus have made concerted effort to keep their CO2 emissions low compared to the rest of those in the developing world. This will finally lead to the SWOT analysis that we will perform before deciding whether or not to invest in this country. Let's start with focusing on the strengths. France has a strong patent and copyright protection, a well-developed infrastructure, a very large talent pool, positive FDI inflow, and a market economy. And let us not forget that France is part of the EU, one of the largest free trade zones on planet Earth. And now we discuss the weaknesses of France. There is an aging population, a stagnant labor market, and as previously discussed, economic freedom in France is inhibited by the French government and issues with. Now let's identify some opportunities in the French market. The French market is a diverse population with an expanding market. Doing business in France also offers us a foothold into the European Union, which, as I said, is the largest free trade zone on planet Earth. And finally, the threats. France has a unified currency, a high tax rate, and recently has suffered a string of very public, very brutal terrorist attacks. This has been Group 3's presentation on France. I hope you found this informative, and I hope this gives you a better understanding of the economic benefits and the risks of investing in France. Thank you for your time and your consideration with this project. Thank you again.